Okay, folks. I'm gonna roll back a little bit here. You see what it says on the screen. I'm gonna read through this here now. There are some people that are starting to talk about weather control, weaponizing the weather modification. And HARP. I done my first HARP video for some odd reason. Because they hadn't morphed into massive dynamic. They were still Cyberdyne systems then. And they removed it. And it was something they said wasn't about my context. It was a picture. They picked a specific picture in my in the video that said that though the picture you put isn't classified, it was once classified and it's not classified anymore, but it's not cleared for public consumption. I still got the picture. And of course, I'm not dumb enough to, because I chased the rabbit as far down as I could down the hole, and the rabbit literally just disappeared. So I just left it alone. I figured, I can do the story without that picture. But anyway, let's just go through this. This isn't about HARP, but think of a HARP that you can fly. Now there is something satellite based that's been in the works since the late 90s, and that's public information. It's public information. Anybody that want to look for it can find it. But let's go with this anyway. Operation Popeye. All right, people, let me give you a little bit of mil spec. Let me give you a little mil spec. When something is classified as a project, that means it's in the testing phase. It's past mock-up. Now, before it's in mock-up, when it's just a dream and some guy's writing on the back of a cocktail napkin at a bar, it doesn't even have a name. You don't become a project until you get funding to actually put the wheels in motion and to test it. That's when you become a project. Once your testing and everything is complete and it's operational, it goes from Project Popeye to Operation Popeye. Because operations are actually, you're putting it into the field of play. You got a Frago for it. Let's go. We rolling with it. Now it's an operation. It's no longer a project. Okay? Weather modification was a technology once embraced by the U.S. military as a tool to help both wartime and peacetime missions. However, interest in the ability to modify the weather waned following the end of the conflict in Vietnam and became virtually non-existent after the passage of the Environmental Modification Treaty of 1977, which prohibited offensive weather modification from occurring over a large area. That treaty was forced mainly by four countries, because one country was the only one that could do it and had repeatable results. I'll let you guess on which country it was, and the other ones didn't like it. It's like, okay, you're the only football team with a field goal kicker, so we're gonna change the rules of football. No more kicking field goals. It's just all safeties and touchdowns. Yeah, that's it. And that's pretty much what happened. But let me see. This isn't very long. So let's go ahead and push through it. And it actually had, here's the thing, it actually had benevolent roots, The reason for this, why it was wanted, had nothing to do with military. It actually had a reasonable. It's still tampering with Mother Nature, but still, it wasn't thought of as a weapon. With the onset of conflict in Southeast Asia, operational interest in modifying weather to support combat operations increased. The goal of such a program would be to flood supply routes used by the North Vietnamese, yeah, I still say it, I say it Vietnamese, into South Vietnam for seeding clouds in the area. Between 1949 and 78, China Lake developed concepts, techniques, and hardware that were successfully used in hurricane abatement, fog control, and drought relief. The use of weather modifications as a tool of warfare was pretty much a byproduct of developments to use weather modification techniques for peacetime missions. Told you. One method that was tried but later abandoned by the military was the use of aircraft dry ice seeding to dissipate cold fog. In the late 60s and early 70s, especially configured WC-130 aircraft, and the W stands for weather. C-130 is an aircraft that I'm pretty familiar with, and anybody that was in air mobile or airborne operations in the Army know that, because that's the first airplane that you jumped out of in jump school was the C-130. C-130 Hercules. It's a the wings go over the top of the fuselage. They're not coming out the sides, or the fuselage doesn't look like it's sitting on top of the wings like in your normal commercial aircraft. Because the cargo doors on the side, we come out. You don't want to come out the door and fly into a freaking wing. That would suck ass. And they can also be loaded from they have a mechanical tailgate that folds down to the ground for you to load and offload men and materiel. Okay, I'll flash some pictures in here, some stock photos. Okay, WC-130 aircraft were equipped with a dry ice crusher and dispenser. This is when it was in infancy, when it was still relatively clean. There's a couple of more items that's used in the seeding process now, along with the dry ice. On a typical mission, such aircraft would fly a seeding pattern consisting of between 5 and 30 parallel lines, each 5 to 6 miles long and a half a mile to 1.5 miles apart. Those are what a lot of things people see. That's a chemtrail, or that's a contrail, or that's a chemtrail, or that's a contrail. And you used to could see it, the cloud seeding. Now you can actually seed without clouds. And I'll let y'all dig and see what you can find on that. The pattern would be flown above the fog at a distance between 45 and 60 minutes upwind of the area where clearing was desired, with the machine generally dispensing 15 pounds of crushed ice per minute. The whole then would hopefully drift over the desired area at the desired time. This is when your barometric pressure, Earth's rotation, whether you're in the which part of the hemisphere that you're in, wind speed, wind direction, shear, all the and ambient temperature, all that stuff comes into play for when you start your drop. All that comes into play. The return on the investment in these operations was significant. During the winter of 69 and 70, for instance, fog dispersal operations in the United States via this method cost $80,000 but saved $900,000. As weather bang for your buck. As weather modification became discredited in the mid-70s, however, this method was abandoned, even though it worked. It wasn't abandoned because it didn't work. a weather modification program for select areas of Laos, which is in Thailand, just in case you didn't know, which subsequently known as Project Popeye, also referred to, actually it graduated to Operation Popeye, was proposed by the Joint Chiefs of Staff 10 August 1966. The command of the U.S. Soldier wrote this. That's how we write the date. You write the day, then the month, then the year. This was wrote by a soldier. This wasn't wrote by a civilian. The command of the U.S. Military Assistance Command, Vietnam, and the commander-in-chief of the U.S. Pacific Command, CENSPAC, boy, I've heard that a lot of times, concurred in the proposal and recommended that it be carried out in a select area of the Tiger Hound area of Operation Laos. The Joint Chiefs of Staff granted approval on 1 September 1966, and that the execute order was issued 17 September 66. The Joint Chiefs of Staff approved. It took me years. I had to force myself to stop writing the date like that when I write on stuff. The Joint Chiefs of Staff approved the project to extend the rainy season by cloud seeding in Laos as a means of denying the enemy vehicular lines of communication. See, the rainy season in that area is significant anyway. Early in the year, it's crazy. So basically, same thing in Korea. We had the same thing in Korea. We call it monsoon. It's called the monsoon season. But man, it never stops raining. Well, it doesn't stop raining during the monsoon. It'll slow down, but it won't stop. Vehicular. There was a significant movement of enemy supplies and personnel through the Sekong watershed and the peripheral mountainous areas. Vehicular traffic was a frequently used method of transportation. Hell, they was moving stuff on bicycles. But it was considerably hampered by poor road conditions caused by inclement weather. It was hoped that the cloud seeding project would cause further deterioration of the infiltration route. The prime objective of Project Popeye was to tailor the cloud seeding techniques developed by the Naval Ordnance Test Station, China Lake, California, to the unique meteorological terrain and operational conditions that existed in the particular area, and then conduct an operational evaluation of the concept. It was estimated that the initial portion, Phase IA, would take 10 days, consisting of preliminary reconnaissance flights over operational areas and some trial cloud seedings conducted for training and proof testing of operations techniques and aircraft. The next phase, IB, would last approximately 35 days and would consist of 50 case samples of randomly selected but controlled cloud seeding operations. Phase IB and Project Popeye commenced on 29 September 1966 and ended on 28 October 1966. And there was a reason, folks, that China Lake was selected. There was a reason China Lake was selected. And it has to do with sea level and barometric pressure. It's not in the story, but I'm just figure I'd throw that in there. A 56 case sample was evaluated, and more than 85% reacted in accordance with the project theory. There was also evidence of broader applications of weather modification, such as cloud rain out over the ocean to reduce precipitation of friendly forces, cloud dissipation by overseeding to improve visibility of friendly forces, and other applications based on tactical operations. In view of the success of Project Popeye, US MAC-V recommended immediate full-scale implementation of the Popeye technique to include these broader aspects. And you can high density, high pressure areas, when the temperature is flipping from warm to cold and closer to the Earth's surface. If you see, then you will make very thick, dense fog, which your own troops can use for cover. But guess what? So can your enemy, because the fog don't care who it's working for. So that part didn't work out so good. That part, but they figured that out real fast. Based on the experience gained during the test, 7th Air Force wrote a Popeye plan for utilizing the technique as an adjunct to weapon systems then being employed in the theater. The operations plan, based on Air Force control and the execution of the entire operation, was approved by US MAC-V and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who forwarded it to higher authority on 5 December 66, with approval to implement the project expected in early 67. The Air Force continued its attempts at weather modification after the initial Popeye tests, flying rain-making missions during 6 Southwest monsoon seasons before the project ended on July 5th, 1972. Initially, 3 WC-138 aircraft were used in the Popeye missions. These aircraft have been converted to a weather reconnaissance configuration featuring the AN/AMR-1 system, capable of receiving information from dropsons. The aircraft, however, were not configured for atmospheric sampling like the WC-130Bs and the WC-130Es in service at the time. And plus also what helps C-130s, being they're propeller driven instead of jet powered, they can fly at a low airspeed. They have high lift by their wing configuration, and they can fly at low airspeed, so they don't disturb. Their wake disturbance and wake is nowhere as big as it is for a jet aircraft. And it's easy to tell. Jump out of a C-130 and then jump out of a C-5A or a C-19. You can definitely tell the difference. As the jumper, the pilot don't feel a damn thing. He don't feel a thing. It's the jumpers, we the one that feel it. Also, you can do skid drops in C-130s too, because they fly slow enough and can get low enough to the ground and easy controlled when they drop the ramp, and then a parachute to come out first, and that'll get it rolling to pull the rest out of the back, out of the aircraft, on a drop skid where they can insert equipment in places that we need without dropping it on a parachute. Man, I'm just talking all this military stuff, but this is what I've done for years on end. The aircraft, however, okay, now aircraft dropped photo flash cartridges inside certain clouds, relying on the release of silver iodide or lead iodide in the updraft to trigger and release of moisture. The annual cost of the effort was roughly $3.6 million, including the operation and maintenance of 3 Lockheed WC-130s and 20 McDonnell Douglas RF-4Cs, purchase of seating materials, and pay for people involved. In the end, however, it proved impossible to determine the amount of additional rainfall caused by cloud seeding rather than other factors, and thus justify the recurring outlay. The Defense Intelligence Agency estimated that seeding increased rainfall in limits areas up to 30% above that predicted for the existing conditions, but this figure admittedly was the result of empirical and theoretical techniques based on units expended and the physical properties of the air mass seeded. Wind speed. In short, a scientific guess. Senior sensor data showed that the enemy consistently experienced difficulty keeping traffic moving through the monsoon rains, a normal problem for that time of year and normal problem for that region, period. Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, Korea, all of them got it. Malaysia, all of them deal with monsoon. From time to time, especially during 71, tropical storms either intensified the downpour associated with the southwest monsoon or extended the rainy season beyond its anticipated close. Atmospheric conditions over either the Indian Ocean or the South China Sea, rather than cloud seeding over southern Laos, damn fax machine, spawned these typhoons. Ironically, typhoon-induced rains interfered with cloud seeding, yes, wind speed, cooling the earth and preventing the updrafts of heated air that were essential to the project. When this effort was exposed, however, the military endured tremendous pressure and criticism, especially from Congress. Within 5 years of negative publicity, U.S. military weather modification research had ceased. We still have the airplanes. The United States still have the airplanes. The airplanes were not decommissioned. They are still in service. I'll leave, and that just is. It just is. It's too easy to use. It's too easy. And now think of the computing power that we have today, where they had the brain power then. Yes, I think people. Yes, they were smarter, because they didn't have machines to lean on. The people had to be smart and make the computations and mathematical equations and whatnot. Everything was drawn out on a big old giant chalkboard. Now computers do it for you, which is great. Everybody want to fax at the same time, which is great. And now, we have land-based HAARP and satellite, but still the seeding process has to take place. The material has to get to the stratospheric level that it wants for it to be used in the way that they want it to be used. So the 130 is still the perfect vehicle, high cargo capacity, can be flown and is stable at low air speeds, and not being as a prop plane, doesn't have the wash that a jet plane have. And jet plane can only fly so slow before it'll stall, because it need the air ram to keep the jet to keep the turbine going on a jet. Anyway, there's some of that. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it means something. Hope it's something that somebody, even if it's just trivial information. So when you hear HAARP, this predates HAARP. Okay? Weather modification, weather control. And if you want to, you can go and see who all was the driving force behind the NMOD Treaty in 1977. You probably won't be surprised. If you're going to go that far and look it up, you're not going to be surprised. But at least you'll know. Be good and be safe.